And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Double A Fantasy Football Podcast for August 2nd, 2022. I am Bob Maruzek, and here with me, as always, are AJ and Alan. Gentlemen, how are we doing today on this slow news week?
Pretty good.
I mean, it's a slow news week.
It is, but it isn't. We
Well,
finally got the biggest piece of news we wanted.
Yeah, so I guess we can kind of dive right into that one. It was announced yesterday morning around 8:30. Judge Sue Robinson came out and issued her decision on the Deshaun case and awarding him a 6-game suspension for the start of the 2022 season, as something has fallen in Allen's house.
I have another infant joining this circus here. 5 animals and then a baby coming soon.
Was that Goose?
It's a literal zoo.
It was a fat cat walking between the gate that I have up, and he tried to squeeze in.
I kind of miss your cat just sitting up behind you.
He's
honestly.
coming. I'm drinking something. He'll be here.
But if you're watching this on YouTube, youtube.com/AA Fantasy Football, you'll be able to see what just happened. If you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate it. But make sure you subscribe on YouTube. We're still doing the giveaway. When are we going to do that drawing? I think we should do it on not the next podcast, but the next one. Like next Wednesday's podcast. Yeah, a week from when this comes out, I think we should do that.
Yeah, speaking of that, you can also find some information from the TikTok. That's AA Fantasy Football. So we got stuff rolling out on there.
It's going crazy. I mean, every day we're bringing content to that page, so make sure you follow that too.
We're going to get Bob in there soon, too. Just a facial reaction. That's all you need, and we'll do the rest.
Guest appearance, yeah.
I wish you all a lot of luck with trying to get me on there. I really do. Where were we? Deshaun, 6 weeks. Now this decision can be appealed by both the NFL and the NFL Players Association. The PA they came out with a statement before the ruling was even issued that they were to accept whatever was to be issued. AJ, this is our account. What was your initial reaction? What's your reaction 24 hours after the fact?
Well, I thought 8 games pretty much the whole time was what it was going to be. 6 games, even better, but we're still waiting, obviously, on a potential appeal. We'll see if the NFL wants to get down dirty with that. I would assume that they probably want to, but are they prepared to deal with the backlash of the Players Association going back and suing them? Do they want to deal with that while their name has been dragged through the mud during this whole case anyway? That might be a factor. We'll see.
I kind of feel like that's why they went with the third party, so that they could do the whole laissez-faire thing. That means hands off. And just like not have any say. Yeah, hard to spell though. But just like they won't have to go either way. Like, hey, we gave it to a professional and it's in their hands. We don't have to do anything. As well as the other side of like, if it's too harsh, some people might say, well, that's on her, not us.
Yeah, that's what I would figure myself. But it seems like everybody thinks the NFL is going to appeal. So why didn't they just abide by Sue Robinson's ruling? I don't know. We'll find out.
They have until Thursday morning at 9 o'clock to issue an appeal, as I believe that's Mittens has joined the recording
the
here.
AA Fantasy Football mascot.
Yes.
Here he is. He's getting old.
That's a good cat.
But with Deshaun, the little bit of news is Cooper seems to be a little banged up. I think he's okay. It's still so early, Amari Cooper, but there's a chance that, a lot of this could really ruin those first 6 games that the Browns have.
Yeah, but with as light as the schedule is for them upcoming, it seems to be that most Browns fans feel that they could reasonably go 500 to start this season off. And then I believe week 7 is Baltimore in a 1 o'clock game, which I believe the NFL is going to keep there by all measures and try to keep as many eyeballs away from his return as possible. I'm okay with the ruling. I made the mistake of going on like Instagram or and reading comments from the townspeople about, what the public perception was about this punishment and whether or not it was warranted or justified. And you see people citing Calvin Ridley receiving a year for betting on games. You see, Tom Brady is cited. You see Robert Kraft. Obviously, he was never given really any punishment for his involvement in that prostitution scandal, if you will. Be that as it may, we're talking about the National Football League, who have never really been able to render any decision with any accuracy in our lifetimes. They're all over the map. They come in too low, they come in too high on punishments, and I think they made the right decision by coming to an agreement with the PA and allowing an arbitrator, a judge, to come in and make these decisions for them. But she had to go off of what the NFL has provided her over the course of history. So no one should be surprised that this is a 6-game suspension. I'm not. And it is what it is at this point. It's been dragging on for so long. I think it's time for everybody to move on. But Deshaun better keep a clean head. If he even gets so much as a speeding ticket or jaywalking, the scrutiny that he will be under.
You're allowed to jaywalk in Cleveland. They don't really care.
Yeah,
just to put that out there for him.
Yeah. Most of our streetlights don't even work anyway. That's fair. Let's move on to some other players here in the National Football League who have been dealing with some injuries. We'll start with Irv Smith, who regrettably has to have surgery on his thumb, or he did have surgery on his thumb. Alan, you prepared this news today, so why don't you share what you know about Irv Smith?
Yeah, it's that he has to have surgery. I mean, the biggest thing with it is that if he's catching the ball and he's somebody we're going to rely on, he's a late round flyer anyways. I mean, he's probably going to hit the waiver wire if this surgery doesn't go smoothly. And so you can still get him later on. But the problem is that you have to block a ton as a tight end. And that's going to take the healing of his thumb. It's going to take longer. And him catching it obviously is going to be impacted by that. So he's kind of one that's fallen off my radar now because of that. So that's really where I don't know much how it happened or what happened with it. I just know that it's going to impact fantasy.
Yeah, this was news to me coming into the day. Did you hear anything about this, AJ?
I did not. I saw that he made it to the field for the first time in over a year at the first practice, and this was news to me as well. A big sleeper tight end that I was aiming for too, but kind of like Deshaun, maybe 4 or 5 weeks into it, he's fine, and that's somebody you pick up off the waiver wire, especially if you're like streaming tight ends, because that's something that I've done numerous times.
Yeah, it said he did it yesterday. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah, he underwent surgery today for it.
Guy can't stay on the field.
No, he can't. And he was highly touted coming into last season too.
Yep.
And it was going to be a guy that, with Kyle Rudolph exiting Minnesota, Irv Smith was going to be taking over a lot of the reps within that offense with Kirk Cousins, and to not have him again this year, depending on how long he's out. I mean, a thumb injury, again, like you say, heavily blocking position. Is this, will he be ready for October? I don't know. With the new head coach, I don't think that sits very well in Minnesota. I just continue. I see this being a dumpster fire again. But let's move on to a more serious injury here. Tim Patrick was carted off the field earlier today with an apparent knee injury, I believe it was. We haven't heard much otherwise since. This is very preliminary. Early on, if we hear anything else before this episode is over, we obviously will bring you that information. Alvin Kamara's court dates have been pushed back to October. I believe they were scheduled for later this month. So that's something to keep an eye on here. James Washington, he is out for 6 to 10 weeks with a fractured foot.
One thing on the Kamara thing before we go to James Washington.
Yes, sir.
We've been doing a mock draft, at least one per day on the TikTok account, just to kind of show people where guys are going right now and what would be realistic at each spot, or various spots. We're responding to some people's comments for requests, but we've been doing the 12-team league one. And Alvin Kamara was a second-round pick in one of the ones I did. A lot of comments were like, this guy's not even playing this year, or, why are you taking Kamara so high? It's because we follow it. Like, it's the tea leaves are showing that this is probably not going to be an issue for him this season, or at least not at the beginning. So if it's not going to be a problem at the beginning, it's probably not going to be a problem in the middle, and it's probably not going to be a problem at the end. Those lawyers are going to push that all the way out until where it's not going to affect him.
Yep. He's definitely a first rounder. There's no problem with him going there too. So if you can somehow get him in the second, that's a steal.
Yeah. Well, I got him. I think it was like the third pick of the second round. So it was right after the turn.
And a couple other points here on the news. Van Jefferson has had a procedure on his knee. Was that yesterday? I believe he had this procedure done.
Yeah.
And Will Fuller, not on the injury front, but he has been getting looks primarily between Dallas and Cleveland, a couple of potential free agent suitors for him.
And the Van Jefferson thing, that's something to keep an eye on too, because the third receiver for the Rams sometimes provides value, and that could be a midseason reunion with Odell Beckham Jr. So they might have. Go ahead.
He was already on their list, kind of like, we're still eyeing him up and stuff. So he's definitely gonna be one they take on more seriously.
Right, and that to me just makes you more confident in Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp. If Van Jefferson's not there, that's somebody Stafford relied on, at least at a real life football level compared to a fantasy level. But just more targets freed up.
Right, and Will Fuller coming into play with James Washington getting hurt, that's probably going to be his likely landing spot. I mean, him and Dak together would be so nice.
Yeah, I could see him with the Browns though. They
absolutely
both make
the chemistry with Watson was unbelievable, especially for fantasy in Houston. So we'll see.
Both teams seem to make pretty good sense, pretty logical sense. I think it would be surprising to see him end up really anywhere other than Dallas, Cleveland, maybe Green Bay.
Yeah, just narrative for Cleveland would be real bad if they did sign him, though, because he just can't stay out of trouble when he's on the field.
Fuller?
Yeah, the ped problem he had before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he gets hurt more than anything. That would be the biggest fear.
So we did the AFC East preview last week on the Thursday episode. Episode was released on Friday for you all. Today we're going to be doing the AFC North, which arguably is the deepest division in all of the NFL at this point. Maybe the NFC West will give them a run, but this is when you have a Super Bowl team representing the AFC who was projected to finish last by about 80% of anybody that put out a projection last year, you know you have depth in your division. Yeah. So like last week, we'll go in the order. We'll go in alphabetical order here, and we'll start with the reigning AFC champions, the Cincinnati Bengals here. Coming off of a 10-7 regular season, but made their way through the playoffs from a wild card position. Vegas actually has them at 9.5 wins projected upcoming for this season, but they've added some pieces in the offseason. They had brought in Hayden Hurst from Atlanta, replacing CJ Uzomah, who has gone to New York. He will be the new top tight end target for Joe Burrow. La'el Collins, the offensive tackle, has come in from Dallas. From New England, the center Ted Karras has come in, so they've bolstered that offensive line nicely. And again, exiting the team has been CJ Uzomah. Really, that was the only offensive weapon that they've lost. Auden Tate, the receiver who was scarcely used, has gone to Atlanta. So, is this a team? I mean, we know historically teams that come off of a Super Bowl loss tend to struggle in the following season. Is this going to be a regression for Cincinnati, or do you see them holding serve in this loaded AFC, Alan?
In real football, I kind of see them flatlining like where they were. I don't see them getting like they took the most sacks last year with 51. Like Burrow beat up terrible bottom of the pack defenses across the board. So I get why that you could see them rising, but I do think that they had the good additions. They're definitely just going to stay where they were, in my opinion.
All right.
My biggest thing with Burrow though is he is going way too high for a non-rushing quarterback, in my opinion, as far as ADP goes.
Yeah, I was going to go with that as well. He's going 56th overall, I think I saw. But he might also kind of be worth it He averaged 20.5 points per game last year. With a line improving that way, with another year of Jamar Chase, a new dynamic tight end with Hayden Hurst, if healthy, that could improve. But they also do have the fourth hardest schedule this year for quarterbacks. So it's kind of like a balancing act, but I'm with you. I think he is going a little too high.
They also have such a slow, what is it? Slow play. I forget what the proper term is right now.
Pace.
Thank you, pace. Slow pace of play compared to everybody else with Zach Taylor there. So I am a little worried about that and him putting up enough points. Plus his last 2 weeks were like back-to-back 400 games with 4 touchdowns. That definitely puts a little bit of an unevenness to his whole year. I think he's safe if you can get him in the 7th. But again, that 5th round or 4th round is so expensive.
Cincinnati, to your point, Alan, they took the 25th most snaps last year on offense, but they had the 7th most efficient scoring offense in the league. Kind of like New England in the sense where their defense came in. Cincinnati's defense, I'm not going to say they were as good as New England's, but
they made plays at big times.
Yes,
a lot.
Yes, yeah. A lot of that has to do with.
Seems like they might regress to the mean of being a little less efficient on both sides of the ball. I think.
So, in regards to the dynamic pairing of Burrow and Chase, do you see a regression with Chase?
No.
Like, do you see a regression with? Do you see a regression with T. Higgins?
I see a positive regression for Higgins. I think he's going to do better than he did last year.
I think he's going to be a lot closer with Jamar Chase as far as things go. I don't see Jamar Chase falling off at all. I see him just being used differently. Like, he was a huge downfield guy. He's still going to get those, but I think it's just going to be more conservative in that sense. Like, he's going to get the 20-yard hit. I think him, Jordy Nelson, and Randy Moss were the only 3 that were targeted as much as he was for downfield plays, 20 yards or more. So he's definitely going to have that output, but it's just the problem of, is he going to then break it for another 40?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, with the improvements that they made in the offensive line in this offseason, Joe Mixon's not going anywhere. Samaje Perine is still one of the best RB2s, arguably, in the NFL, I think, for money. I don't see where this offense has dropped off.
I'm falling just a little bit on Joe Mixon. Not more than a couple places, but I think Samaje Perine is their receiving back. I think they're going to continue to use him that way. And then last year he had the 3rd most carries, the 5th most red zone touches, and he had the 4th most touchdowns amongst the running backs. He's still only 25 years old. I have no problem taking him. I just think the upside is with the other people that are around his spot.
So I'm going to counter. Perine is a really good backup running back, but I think he's kind of like the backup workhorse to take Mixon's actual role if something were to happen. In camp so far, and pretty much everywhere around, is saying Chris Evans is their receiving back this year. He did a lot of that the last couple games of the year of last year.
You're right.
So I don't think Perine's really going to be that involved unless Mixon gets hurt or, he just kind of mixes Perine in to run a little bit. I don't think he's going to be involved in the passing game, but I am with you in terms of a little bit lower on Mixon. They really like Chris Evans, and we're not talking about Captain America. We're talking about the 3rd down receiving back. PPR literally might end up being one of those guys that you're desperation flexing halfway through the year because he might get 4 or 5 receptions a game, 25 to 30 yards, and you need 8 points, maybe falls in the end zone on one of them. Then you get a 13-point week. I think that I've heard that they don't want to use Mixon much on 3rd down, and it's not his inability to catch or anything. I think they just want to take a little bit off his workload. So I'm with you. I still think he could be taken end of 1st round if you're a big running back guy, like you're afraid of a receiver.
Yeah.
But beginning of the 2nd should be the lowest he falls. He's still top at least 10 back.
From 7th pick on, I'd be comfortable taking him.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a good safe pick. The big question mark for me with the team is Hayden Hurst. I want to see how they're going to use him, what they're going to do with him. He's a possibility on their team. Tyler Boyd is still there. So there isn't a lot to go around to Hayden Hurst. He's just somebody to watch on the waiver wire. And, of course, AJ's favorite, Drew Sample. They don't have Jeremy Sprinkle anymore, but he also could, Just take.
I didn't even know Sprinkle was there. I thought he was with Washington last year.
Is that where it was? All the sample sprinkles are getting in the way.
A little more Mixon. He had 7 touchdowns inside the 5 last year, which was tied for 3rd in the league. I don't think that changes whatsoever. He's their goal line back.
Yeah.
If they want to hand it off, it's going to him. He also had 70% of the rushes inside the 5-yard line last year on the whole team. So basically nobody else is getting the ball. I would imagine that, I didn't look it up, but I bet Joe Burrow is probably second in terms of rushes inside the 5. So
yeah, they like to use them a lot.
Let's talk about the receivers just a little bit, and then we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the earliest you would take Jamar Chase if you're drafting? Right now, his ADP is 9th.
Okay, I was going to say, personally, I'd say like at the turn of the second.
Okay. So you would take... Okay, so would you take Mixon or Chase first?
Mixon.
Is that just because you lean running back?
Yeah, I lean running back. You also gave, that goal line carrying. I don't think Burrow's really going to take any of that away. Jamar Chase, it's not that I'm off of him. It's just I'd rather get Mixon and then possibly get T. Higgins. What is he going in, like the 5th?
Yeah, 4th, 5th.
Yeah, so I'd rather go that route.
And then what do you think about Tyler Boyd?
I don't have much on.
Okay.
Like, I don't... Like late, just to take a chance on him, but I'm not feeling anything crazy about him.
To me, I kind of looked at him like Tim Patrick, like a late guy who you wouldn't feel terrible putting in your lineup at some point if you had to. But Higgins, I like him to go crazy this year compared to last year. I mean, he just has so much potential.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Higgins is going to be the one people are going to target too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what Cincinnati's strength of schedule is comparative to the rest of the NFL, but just by running it at a glance, it's brutal.
They have a tough schedule.
Pittsburgh, at Dallas, at the Jets. They host Miami, at Baltimore, at New Orleans. They have a Week 10 bye, and then those final 8 games that they have are insane. They come off the bye at Pittsburgh, at Tennessee. They host Kansas City and Cleveland. They are at Tampa, at New England, and then they are at home to Buffalo and Baltimore. I think
that's where Burrow...
All 8 of those teams were in the playoffs last year.
He did really well
against Pittsburgh,
the bad teams. But he did not... Like, he wasn't a phenomenal fantasy player against the good teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. The schedule is so tough, but they were so dynamic last year. It's going to be they're going to be a must watch every week, as far as I'm concerned. Until they fall off.
I'm also somebody who loves to stack, and if you want to stack anything on the Cincinnati team, it is very expensive. So I am not for that as well for that reason. Joe Burrow with any of the wide receivers is pretty expensive, or if you put Mixon in there, it's still that way.
Let's move on to Cleveland, where they went 8-9 last year in a disappointing campaign. Baker Mayfield's final campaign with the team.
Could I interrupt you?
I'd be insulted if you didn't.
Which way are we doing alphabetically?
Bengals, Browns, Ravens, Steelers.
Okay. Because you kind of started to by going Cincinnati and then Cleveland. Mm-hmm. So I
forgot about Baltimore entirely then.
Yeah.
The B.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah.
B's.
That's why I was like, no, but I got you now.
Yes. So 8-9. This is Kevin Stefanski's 3rd year with the team. They have obviously made a switch at quarterback. Baker Mayfield is off to Carolina, and Deshaun Watson has come in from Houston and the massage parlor. Also joining the team has been Amari Cooper. They brought him in from Dallas, and that should be a good parallel since Odell has exited the team last season when he was traded to the Rams. They've also brought in backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett, who is replacing the other backup quarterback of ours, Case Keenum. I was going to say Chase. And through the draft, they were able to add a wide receiver in David Bell, the 3rd-round pick from Purdue. On the way out also were Jarvis Landry and tight end Austin Hooper, who did not so well for us, putting it mildly. So from a fan,
nicely put.
It's a family show. So we're looking at Deshaun Watson eventually, but with Jacoby Brissett in these first 6 weeks, This is still one of the best running cores in the NFL with Chubb, Hunt, Diontae Johnson if needed. And then we have
Watson. I know what you're saying.
With Brissett.
With Watson rushing the ball.
Well, I'm saying with Brissett, though. Like for these first 6 weeks, though, we're looking at still a strong core of running backs. And then if and when Brissett starts to throw the ball, how far he gets the ball around, we shall see. But the question marks for me are going to be in this receiving core beyond Amari Cooper. Is there value in this wide receiver core? AJ.
Well, before we jump into the receivers, I want to ask Alan, do you have interest in drafting Deshaun Watson in redraft leagues?
I do, but I'm sitting here thinking about where. Because he's out 6 games. He finishes the quarterback 3 from 2018 to 2020. About 500 rushing yards per year and 5 rushing touchdowns is what you could depend on. I honestly, the rushing might even go up the way this team rushes the ball and as good as their line is. So I don't know. Like, I think maybe like 7th round is the earliest I would consider it. But I'm also in a league with all Browns fans, so that's why I'm saying I think he'll go that early. But, I mean, I'm talking 9th or 10th round is where I'd feel comfortable doing it, because at that point I can get Kirk Cousins and someone else.
That's exactly. I feel like if you want to get Watson for the price you should pay for him, 9th, 10th round, pair him with Cousins or Carr, or look ahead at the first 6 games of the year for other quarterbacks going in that range, see what their schedule looks like. And then you might have a gem there. But I would, if you're going to go with that strategy, I would draft Watson first and then go get the quarterback that you're planning on starting, because a lot of those quarterbacks you're going to be able to get off the waiver wire or even later. And this is like a risky payoff situation for Watson's if you're drafting him.
Like I could see getting like Mac Jones.
Yeah, honestly,
for that first little bit with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And be okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. Even Matt Ryan. I know I was not the Matt Ryan guy, but like it's a different situation this year for him. He might not provide a ton of value, but he could get you 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, each week, get you 16 points and just drag you to that week 7. But to answer your question, Bob, let's talk about Amari Cooper first. Allen, he's going 57th overall. Too high, too low? Would you be in on him?
I think you're talking 6 games with Jacoby Brissett. Do you think he has sustained a wide receiver that was relevant for fantasy?
I mean, not particularly, but Amari Cooper doesn't need much to be just fantasy worthy. I mean, he finished last year 20th in yards after catch. So he literally, and that's of every position, running back, tight end, receiver. He doesn't need much to get going. Get it to him at the line, and then he takes off. He's a great route runner. He's going to get open. So a pro like Jacoby Brissett should be able to hit him. I think he's valuable to be selected there, and then he might take off halfway through the year with Watson.
Yeah. The second half of the year is where it is, but if you're kind of depending on after those 6 games, I feel like there's more value in some of the rookie wide receivers to take that chance on too. Less of a chance, obviously, with Cooper, but Jacoby Brissett threw 5 total touchdowns in his 5 starts for Miami last season. So that's where you're going to get the downside of possibly, 1 touchdown or probably 2 touchdowns through 6 games, but you're going to get the yardage because Cooper produced that himself.
Let me get a quick this or that with Amari Cooper with current ADP. Amari Cooper or Hollywood Brown?
I'd go Hollywood Brown.
I would go Cooper.
Okay. Hollywood's going 4 spots lower. Now that we know about Tim Patrick possibly being out for the year, Amari Cooper or Jerry Jeudy?
I knew you were going to say it. Probably
Jeudy.
Amari Cooper or Cortland Sutton?
Sutton.
Sutton and Jeudy are both going 7 and 8 spots behind Cooper.
They're going really close to each other, too.
It's easier to value. It seems easier to value. Sorry to interrupt you. It just seems easier to evaluate a receiver's potential based on 1 quarterback throwing to him instead of 2.
See, I feel like that is always not the best way to look at it. because bad quarterbacks have produced very good fantasy receivers all the time. Brandon Cooks, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
And we can't
it's
call
Russell Wilson.
That's fine. That means their floor is good.
Right.
But it does not matter if you like. Sometimes the quarterback just doesn't matter. Like guys are that good. So
I guess based on how the plays were called last year, I don't expect a big wide receiver boom the first 6 games. They're going to play it safe. They're going to rush a bunch. That's how I feel like it's going to play out, especially the way that Jacoby Brissett plays.
If he's your wide receiver 3 through 6 games, I mean, like let's say you went running back, 3 straight wide receivers. Right. Got him in the 5th round. Like, I don't know. I feel like if he's a wide receiver 3, he's going to finish in the top 20 probably when Watson gets there.
Would you take DK Metcalf? Decaf over Cooper then?
That's great.
Yeah. Yes, I have Decaf listed higher than Cooper in my rankings, so yes, I would too.
It's kind of that same mentality, I guess.
Well,
Metcalf's
ADP is 12 spots ahead of Cooper. So, but at that ADP, I'd rather have Cooper.
But if he doesn't have that caffeine, is he worth it?
Yeah, that's right. To answer Bob's question, I don't think anybody in the receiving core is valuable for fantasy until Watson gets back. Because I think Donovan Peoples-Jones turns into his Will Fuller. He is a sneaky wide. I mean, he had games last year. I mean, he was being started for a 5-week stretch every week at a flex at least. He was number 4 in ADOT last year, which means average depth of target, which means he was getting deep balls from Baker Mayfield, let alone Deshaun Watson, who does throw bombs. Same offense, doesn't matter. Last year, DPJ was also number 1 in yards before catch, which means the ball was in the air longer than any other receiver in the NFL. So he is like a huge deep threat, and Watson loves a good deep threat with like Will Fuller. I think that's what he becomes.
Do you think Njoku has any play?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
TE2.
I mean, he has upside. You got to see that first. I mean, he's going undrafted, so it's like
that's what that's why I'm asking, because he's in that range of Gerald Everett.
You see the targets, like if you see them targeting him, even in the red zone, they targeted the tight ends a lot in the red zone last year. I mean, Hooper, Harrison Bryant, they were getting the targets, and even Njoku. But we got to see what that playbook looks like with Watson, because I think they'll open it a little more than they did with Baker. But
yeah, I mean, Cousins, I mean, no, it's different, head coach to offensive coach, but Cousins did a lot when Stefanski was there as far as getting the ball downfield, and their tight end was always involved.
Yeah, Rudolph was a solid fantasy option at one time. Let's talk about the running backs. I think these are the stars of the show for this team. Chubb is Chubb, you know? I mean, there's no other way to put it. In standard, he should probably be like 10 slots higher than where he is. But in PPR, he is currently 15th overall right now. Is that a good spot for him?
It feels like such a steal.
It does, right?
Yeah,
like
it does. It's just, that's not, even though he does well when he catches the ball.
Yeah,
it's just not his role.
Having the injury last year, exactly.
It's just not his role.
But I mean, he's like mini Derrick Henry when it comes to the rushing attack. And the only reason he finished as low as he did last year, which I'd have to look up, I feel like he was top 10, top 12, but is because he missed 4 games last year. I mean, this guy's like on pace for 2,000 yards rushing. He's just like Derrick Henry with less carries.
Yes.
So I feel like he's kind of a steal in PPR. He's kind of like the Mike Evans of running backs to me. It's like, Chubb's, man, I love watching Chubb, but not on my team, not on my fantasy team.
But gets the job
done.
But
then you face Chubb and he rips off 22 points against you, and you're like,
oh, that guy.
That hurt. But let's talk about Kareem Hunt. He's back. He's healthy. The last time he was healthy, in 2020, he finished as the number 12 running back in PPR, with Chubb, I think, finishing top 6.
He is that flex running back that creates the mold for all the other guys. Like, he's the best one you can get.
Yeah.
A.J. Dillon's going to compete with that a little bit this year. Maybe not Melvin Gordon. But so I have no problem
Tony
when people
Pollard.
take him. Okay.
I think Tony Pollard and they're going right around each other. They're like a perfect example of each other.
It has to be half or full PPR for me to really want Hunt more.
So right now he's going as running back 30, 76th overall. Last year, he averaged 15.3 points per game in the first 5 weeks before he got hurt.
Dang.
2 years ago, he was a top 12 running back. Last year, he was 15 points a game. Like, I don't understand. He is like the most unsexy pick, apparently, which is funny because we just talked about Chubb being undervalued and underappreciated in fantasy. But then you get to Hunt, and all you think about is Chubb. You're like, I can't take him. Chubb carries the ball every play. But then Hunt does what he does so efficiently. I think he's a steal.
I think in its own way, the Watson dilemma is making everybody on the Browns go down when it shouldn't for either of the running backs, but it is.
Yeah, I hope it stays this way.
Do you
guys need to get Hunt and Chubb?
Now, do you guys see the offense operating any differently under Jacoby Brissett before Deshaun comes back? Like, do you see maybe, heavy running but split carries between the two backs to keep him healthy for the long term? Maybe less emphasis on the pass given Jacoby's skill set compared to Deshaun's. Do you see anything that way that might affect anybody's draft position early on?
I think it looks exactly like Baker. I mean, I think that's exactly what it's going to look like. It'll be contained to where Jacoby doesn't have to be creative. It's like you're going to have options. If you don't see those options, take the underneath, and they're going to hand it off a lot to Chubb. Hunt will get carries, but Chubb should be getting 25 carries a game to start the year.
Absolutely zero fantasy relevance here, but Demetric Felton is still the fourth running back on this team, and he could probably be a backup somewhere in the NFL.
I mean, he might be their fourth receiver at this point.
Yeah, that's one of my concerns for this team moving forward.
I have a little breaking news here. Tim Patrick suffered season-ending ACL injury.
Yeah, I think we saw that coming pretty much with they suspect it to be, not good.
Sad to see.
Jerry Jeudy is going to climb boards now.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if yeah.
He's going to take the Irv Smith spot for sure, and even higher possibly.
Yeah. Albert O's definitely, I think, my favorite sleeper tight end this year. I do like Hurst, but I don't know if he'll be healthy or not.
Let's move on to a team with a tight end that we don't have to worry about their health. This is the Baltimore Ravens. Their tight end is Mark Andrews. He is a top 3 tight end in the NFL. We'll get to him shortly, but they're coming off of an 8-9 season down in Baltimore. Vegas has them projected to win 9.5 this year. This is John Harbaugh's 15th year as the coach of the Baltimore Ravens. How the time flies. Incoming players here on offense. They've brought in an offensive tackle and Morgan Moses from the Jets, and through the draft, bringing in tight end Charlie Kohler from Iowa State and running back Tyler Badie. Is it Badie? Badie. We'll call him Tyler. I like Tyler Badie. Sounds cool. From Missouri.
Oh, you a baddie.
He is. On the way out, Marquise Brown off to the Cardinals in that draft day trade that was made, and Sammy Watkins is on his way to Green Bay. So, gentlemen, this all revolves around Lamar Jackson, doesn't it? This offense and the return of J.K. Dobbins more than anything. There are holes at wide receiver, but I'll let you guys take off here wherever you'd like to lead. Yep, go for it.
I think it's in Lamar for me. I think people are worried about him, and I get it because without the 2 lead running backs, I can see why people get a little worried. But Lamar was on pace for 1,100 yards last year, rushing yards, and then still passed the most he's ever passed in his career. So I'm not worried about him and his production. He's going around the 5th, 6th round, I think. And is that right?
Current ADP is 50 overall.
Okay. So I guess that's 4th, 5th round if you're in a 12-man. I don't think there's a problem taking him. He kind of if you take him, you should be okay taking Trey Lance. So it is a more expensive version. But if you somehow get Mark Andrews in the first, take Lamar Jackson and just stack it and run with it.
Well, Andrews he's pretty much going in the second.
Yeah, okay. Remember when Travis Kelce was going like number 1 overall?
No. I remember him going like 7th. But man, a tight end that high is terrifying. I'm with you. I think Lamar is going to have a huge year. I think he's healthy. He's put on muscle. He's going to be able to take the hits a little more. He never good. Really gets hit. He never gets hit anyway. So it's like, did he even need to add that? But on the turn into the 5th round, I think is a perfect price for him, especially if this is somebody. And if you follow the TikTok, AA Fantasy Football, this is somebody, if you are picking at the end of a round, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you go 0 running back to start, this is your RB1 or RB2. This is like worth the investment in the 5th round if you look at him like a running back, because I think we've looked this up before. As a running back, he finishes like top 12 with his rushing stats. So if you have a 0 RB approach, or maybe you don't like, or maybe you go 1 RB and then you go 3 straight wide receivers, pick him on the turn. That's your RB2. That's your quarterback and your RB2. So yeah, he was averaging 23 points per game last season. It's not like he was having a bad year, but people thought he was because he got hurt. That's literally the only reason. I hope he stays as discounted as he is, but I think once we get closer to the end of August, real drafts, he's going to go up a little bit, probably early 4th.
Do you think their backfield, as far as J.K. and Gus Edwards go, is going to look similar to the Browns? Like in the sense of you can take either one of them, and you're going to have a flex in Gus. J.K., I think, could possibly still finish as an RB1 for most teams.
Yeah, I think there's a healthy floor with Gus if he himself is healthy. Dobbins is clearly the lead back. I mean, even in his rookie year, he had 9 touchdowns. The only thing about him, he's going a little high for me right now. He's like 48th overall ADP, which the reason it's high for me is because most of my leagues are at least half PPR, but most of them are full PPR. Dobbins only had 24 targets in 2020, and he played the whole year.
I know.
So solid standard league running back, 9 touchdowns his rookie year. I think that's probably going to be a similar thing if he starts the year ready to go. But in PPR, he's just a little too high in the price for me.
They target the running backs a little more last year when they had Devonta Freeman there. Like, yeah, as far as passing.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot going on.
Using anything they could.
Huntley was playing games. Like, they just really adjusted their game plan quite a bit.
Was last year the game where Lamar pooped himself?
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
The Monday Night Miracle.
Yeah. Yep.
The last piece, I mean, Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. His ADP is appropriate for the output he's going to give you. We have no problem with him possibly finishing as a tight end 1, him and Kelce. Do you have something to add to that, AJ?
Yeah. How old is Mark Andrews?
I'm on it. 26.
Well,
okay.
Years.
Yeah. So he's very likely to finish tight end 1. But don't be surprised if Kyle Pitts finishes tight end 1. I'm saying it right now. Just saying. You can get him around later for those listening.
I'll be a little surprised if he jumps Mark Andrews and Kelce, but because you told me not to be, I won't.
Talk about target share. Kyle Pitts might get 40% target share this year.
They're going to be down a lot too. But
yes, sir.
Rashad Bateman. That's where I think a lot of people. I think people are now starting to overshoot him.
Yeah,
I think they're thinking a little bit higher of him than what he should be. He is great. He's the main wide receiver 1 there. I think he's going to have a 22% or more target share as far as that goes. He did seem a little more secure as far as catching the ball too. I think he's more of a safe pick than he is a booming pick.
So it's funny you say that because I feel like he's at least being viewed as a big breakout candidate this year, which doesn't make him safe to me because it's an unknown. There's no track record for it. So if you have a track record, I feel like there's safety in that. Whereas last year he did basically nothing. He had like 100-yard game, but I think he only had 2 games in double digits, partially because he missed the first 6 games. Rookie receivers, they always go slow at the beginning, and because of their game plan. They have him projected for 72 catches, 910 yards, 5 touchdowns. Currently going 92nd overall. If he hits those numbers, that's above his ADP, the output. So yeah, I'm fine targeting him with his upside.
Brown had 146 targets last year, 9th most among wide receivers. That's what I think people are really thinking is going to happen with Bateman.
Sure.
The difference is, which could, because they did lose Sammy Watkins, like Bob was saying, and there's not much else to target, and maybe some running back woes in the beginning of the year. But I don't know.
Let me get you 1 second just to add to your point. The receiver room in Baltimore right now is Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet the second, Benjamin Victor, Jalen Moore, Tylan Wallace,
Slade Bolden.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who are we talking?
So the 146 targets is definitely could be there.
Does a receiver get drafted other than Bateman? Does Duvernay get looks in like the 12th, 13th, 14th rounds? No.
Not a soul, on this team besides Andrews.
Maybe an idiot might draft him.
Duvernay could definitely be a daily fantasy option when we get to that. We'll be doing that later in the seasons.
There's a little spark with Duvernay. I've heard rumblings like what they're going to turn him into, but I mean, that's get your fab money and pay for him week 1 or week 2 in the waiver wire. Cause like I feel like that's a waste. There's a lot more guys going super late in drafts that you feel good about upside compared to Devin Duvernay. You don't have to pay
more than $5 for him either.
Yeah, unless he has like a crazy week.
I mean, if you're the wide receiver 2 on any team, chances are like you're going to get some touches somewhere. And Duvernay seems to have enough talent to contribute. I don't know. I don't know about meaningfully for your fantasy rosters, but from an X's and O's standpoint, and is he going to be the return man?
I don't know. I think he was last year.
I think he was last year.
He was, but probably not because they need him so bad.
They gave him a lot of touches in like special ways last year, like end arounds and short.
We're also talking about a
weird situation.
We're also talking about a 24-year-old here too, and started his career first season during the pandemic too. So we'll see. The story is his storybook is not closed yet. Anything else on Baltimore?
What a cluster we're going to move on to.
Yeah. Do you want to move? You want to move on to this construction zone on the I-76?
Yes.
Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they were, what they are, and what they probably will be, which is 9-8. I hope Allen would sell his soul for 9-8
all day in a quotation marks in the air rebuilding year. I'll take that.
Talk about being safe in a safe floor. If you can't at least give Mike Tomlin 9-8, you haven't been paying attention because the guy has never had a losing record ever.
We're talking John Harbaugh year 15, Mike Tomlin year 16.
He's never had a losing record.
Absurd.
Ever.
I wonder how many Harbaugh's had. I mean, he's had some,
maybe like two,
yeah,
3 tops.
Had to be between. Man, I don't know.
You had Flacco for the longest time, and then they transitioned seamlessly into Lamar.
They've basically said Trubisky's job is his to lose. I'd also like to point out, just for the sheer fact that Chicago traded up to take Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. Just a little side fact there. But the problem with having, like, even Mitch Trubisky as a quarterback too is I think the Steelers are going to test out Pickett a couple of games, and you can't rely on Trubisky that whole time then. To me, this team's identity is Najee Harris and the defense. Diontae Johnson, I mean, we'll get into these deeper. This is me just running over. Diontae Johnson's having some contract extension woes. He's not putting on his full pads. We'll see how that plays out. He'd be silly to not play because we've seen how that has gone for all other people that sat out for the Steelers.
Do you think he's not going to?
I don't know. I don't even know how you have any doubt. Attitude.
I mean, he's showing up to practice in gear, not pads.
He's
but
not. I haven't seen any gear. I've only seen
he was wearing a helmet. He's got his jersey. He's got sweatpants on. Like he's out there with the team. He's not doing Le'Veon Bell stuff. It's not even
calling
close.
It a hold in.
Yeah, right. So he's showing up for work until he gets paid. And if he doesn't get paid, he's still going to play.
They don't pay they don't pay him like that.
Right.
So I just don't think he's going to be there next year.
Real quick on Baltimore. Harbaugh's had 2 seasons under 500
last year.
Last year they went 8-9, and then in 2015 they went 5-11 when their quarterbacks were Jimmy Clausen, Ryan Mallett, and Matt Schaub. Easy way to go 5-11.
Nice.
Continue.
There you go. But with Diontae, I mean, his contract situation, I feel like, does not matter. He's under contract, and he doesn't seem like he's going to hold out.
I don't know.
What difference? What have you seen though? What are you talking about that you've seen?
Brown and Bell. So I have PTSD from it, specifically myself. I get it.
Yeah. Did Brown hold out?
Yeah, at one point he held out, didn't he?
I thought he held out for like some of his games, then they finally paid him, like for 6 to 10 games or something, maybe less.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He just doesn't seem
the
like...
thing with that is, I don't see them hitting him for 120 targets on the year.
That's crazy to me, because the last year that Le'Veon Bell was not in a contract, they drove him into the ground with 300 touches. And then they didn't pay him.
That's what he has seen happen. So he's like, all right, I'm not going to put my body out there on the line while they're doing that. On top of that, though, do you really trust Trubisky and Kenny Pickett to do enough for Diontae to be as relevant as his ADP?
Yeah, because they can throw a 6-yard slant just like Ben did. It's not a difficult thing to do. He's such a good target.
Did this offensive line get better or worse in your opinion, Alan?
I forget who they added. I'll look that up as we talk, but I think it got a little better. They're one of the youngest teams in the NFL.
I don't know if they added anybody. Did they bring in Kevin Dotson? Is he new?
No.
He was there. James Daniels?
Yeah.
He was there.
I don't remember him.
Shakrumra Okafor?
He was there.
They stink.
He was pretty good. He was injured last year, though, so.
They stink. I'm just saying, until he holds out, there's not an issue at all with where he's going. I mean, he had 10 targets a game last year, averaged 16 fantasy points a game. George Pickens, I think, will eat into that a little bit. But, they had Juju last year, and he had targets. So it's
he was injured for, 3/4 of the year.
3/4?
Wasn't he? I thought he got injured.
You probably know more than me. Steeler fan.
Looking up. What is his ADP? Diontae.
Yeah, Juju only played 5 games last year, but they had Claypool.
35, 36.
Who? Yeah, that's just Diontae.
That's his ADP?
Yeah. And around 3.
Give me people going right behind him.
I got you. He's 38th right now, so it's middle of round. That's early round 4 and 12 team, but early 4. Diontae or Jalen Waddle,
and don't just jump because he's the wide receiver 1.
That's boy.
Diontae or DJ Moore.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore's going way behind him.
Diontae or Terry McLaurin.
Oh, I love Terry. I'd probably have to go Diontae. Right behind Diontae is also Michael Pittman. As well as
Pittman just for potential breakout for him.
Yep. What about DK Metcalf or Diontae?
Diontae. So easily.
I just see,
given the quarterback situation, I guess
Diontae.
That might be quarterback based.
Why though? Why would they not?
I've
give
already
him the
explained
ball?
Because I don't know. Other than it's way easier to hand the rock to somebody that's lined up compared to targeting somebody out on the field.
Right, but he got 10 targets a game last year and handed the ball to Najee Harris 273 times.
How many other targets went to Claypool and James Washington? Hardly any. The rest went to Freiermuth. So it's not the playbook's going to look so different. If they're going to hit Claypool, he's lining up in the slot now differently. I think he's a good outside guy too. I just see things.
Same coach that's been running the team for 16 years, same game plan every year.
I'm okay taking somebody else in that area than the worries I have about Diontae.
Well, sure, but I mean...
Well, that's what my argument is.
You just took him over Terry McLaurin, and you're acting like he's not draftable.
Terry, that's a close one. That's probably the closest.
Still, but even if it's close, you're acting like he's going like 5 rounds too high or something. Like, this guy's a freaking PPR machine. And he's the only reliable person that you could take on this team besides Najee Harris.
And Freiermuth.
I don't think he's reliable.
His 1 year.
Yeah, I don't think he's reliable, but his price tag's brilliant. We'll get to him. So, okay, are you up on Claypool then because he's moving to the slot?
I honestly, the only people I want from this team are Freiermuth and Najee. I'm not really going in on either one of them. I would say I'm a little bit higher on them because I'm seeing them use them differently. I think George Pickens is somebody to target late, or even on the waiver because of the way they're trying to incorporate him. But rookie wide receivers for the Steelers don't typically have crazy years.
Pickens is spicy.
I just don't see how... If this offensive line stays at the status quo that it was last season, when Ben could only take like a step back and throw the ball 5 yards, your closest players are going to be your best targets. I think Freiermuth actually might be a decent play here. And Najee Harris. Beyond that, Christ only knows what's going to happen with this offense. It's just so nerve-wracking. Even to watch Ben Roethlisberger not run for his life, but just throw for his life to get the ball out quick enough so he didn't get killed out there became a tough watch.
I don't like Diontae. I don't want him on the Steelers team from a homer standpoint. I want him. I think they should pay for him. He's shown enough to be able to be that guy. I just am saying in the tea leaves that I've seen for how the Steelers do this, they won't use him the same.
Well,
so do you think that, AJ, just for a long prediction, do you think he finishes just about where he was last year as far as receptions and targets?
Maybe a little lower. I don't know what he finished last year. Probably top, I don't know, 16. This is crazy. They also have the third easiest schedule this year, by the way.
Oh, thank God.
For receiving purposes. I mean, it's just crazy.
And yet, they'll probably go 9-8.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean?
They're not that good of a team, but it's just you have a guy so good and proven. You're not gonna not throw him the ball. That's just.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy that targeted him more than any other wide receiver was targeted in the NFL except Cooper Kupp, essentially. Ben looked for just him. Big Ben is not there, though.
Right.
I don't know if you know that.
I don't know if you know, but the coach calls the plays, and it's the same coach.
Oh, not when it's Big Ben.
Oh, okay.
Big Ben's out there audibling all the time.
My bad. Their offense last year looked exactly like it has the last 10 years when Ben was there. It looked really similar.
Exactly. So Big Ben was there audibling.
That was sarcasm.
I know it was. I'm also saying that Big Ben clearly audibles just as much as Peyton Manning and Brady do.
Sure.
Did.
But the point is, they're not going to have time to throw. So who do you throw to when you don't have time to throw? The same guy that you throw to last year when you didn't have time to throw. The best player on your offense.
They'll be a little bit better in that area just because I think Trubisky and Pickett could scramble obviously better than Big Ben. Even when Mason Rudolph was in, he was scrambling a little bit more.
Move. But he never could, really. But
yeah.
He was sneaky, though, on the back end.
Yeah, oh, my God. Speaking of tea leaves, I don't know if you've heard, but Kenny Pickett's likely to not even play a single second this year.
He's looking that way.
Quarterback 3, and Rudolph's their backup. So, I mean,
I just hate talking about Mason Rudolph.
Well, you won't have to. I don't think he's ever going to play over Trubisky unless he gets hurt, which could happen.
You remember how good Trubisky and Allen Robinson were? I hope that happens for Diontae. I'm completely okay being wrong about this.
There was only 4 games last year that Diontae was not targeted 10 times or more, and one of them was 9 times.
He had a 10%, or sorry, 10. He had a 28% target share And you don't think that's going to take a hit. You think it's going to go down to 26%.
Even though Najee Harris had 74 receptions, he still had that big of a target share. I would believe that Najee's target share goes down before Diontae's.
So on record, we have you saying 28% might fall to 26%.
Give me 3%, so 25%. Nice round number. He's going to have 25% target share if he doesn't hold out.
Okay.
Which I don't know his
but
personality.
Now I thought he wasn't holding out.
Well, he could. I don't know his personality, but it doesn't seem like he is. I don't know why he'd even show up at this point if he wasn't going to hold out.
I know.
Like, why even go to camp? Why? There's no point because you're going to play. That's why.
Let's move on to positive news and Pat Freiermuth. Unless you want to talk about Claypool or Pickens.
Let's talk about Pat Freiermuth.
No, I have no idea what they're going to do with Claypool because of the quarterback situation. Freiermuth, top 10 upside. He's going 107th overall. He had 9.5 points per game in PPR last year. Third easiest schedule. I mean, I don't know. I don't see him making leaps and bounds improvement over what he did last year.
I mean, if they can, if they can kind of just like, have him pop out to the outside and get those little 5-yarders, in a PPR, he's a PPR play all day. Standard that's not my business, so I can't profess. But from a PPR standpoint, he seems like a great play.
He had the second most targets inside the 10 for his position. So I kind of see that staying where it is. And Ebron is not there. Ebron did kind of sprinkle in here and there. He wasn't not worth anything, but
let me ask you, what makes you think that's going to stay the same? Different quarterback. Yeah, he's going to have the same
amount. His target share was 12%.
Okay.
Compared to 28. I just think it's much more realistic that his ADP, all of that stays the same compared to...
No, my point was, with Diontae, you said there's a new quarterback. The game plan's not going to be the same to get him the ball as much. But now with the new quarterback, Pat Freiermuth is still going to see the same amount of targets inside the 10? Like, the game plan doesn't change for him? Is it because he's young?
I don't know. I feel like you're being so nitpicky with my words right now. I just think that Freiermuth is going to get the same amount. Yes, with 12% target share. I don't think I'm going out on a limb saying
not the 12%, the inside the 10. Like,
okay.
He's the main target in the red zone. Still.
Probably behind Diontae, which I think will still take place. I think Diontae should, if he plays through, he should still be the main leading target.
Was he the number one last year?
Diontae? I would assume
inside the 10. Well, I don't know, because they dumped to Najee so much. He could be the one. I have no idea.
I kind of don't count Najee, I guess, in those. I just think it's a lot easier to put a tight end in the role that he's in, continue that, than it is to have Claypool, who they're boosting more and more. They're talking about using him differently, as well as Pickens making a splash. They're going to try to incorporate the other weapons that they have because they're moving forward with things. And Diontae wants paid, and he's not going to get paid because the Steelers are so cheap. Who do you think is your winner of this division, and who do you think is the hardest to put your finger on for this division?
I think Baltimore wins the division.
That's kind of where
I mean,
but
I was going with players, not
like who
like who's your hardest to predict? Yeah, fantasy.
Well, the way you made it sound just now, Diontae Johnson's probably the hardest to predict. I mean, the lock is probably Lamar.
Yeah. I kind of love Lamar. I mean, Chubb's a lock.
Or Chase.
Chase, I don't know. Chase could be risky.
I think Najee's a
In what
lock
way,
too.
AJ?
Well, because maybe I think Higgins is going to do better this year, so some targets are going to go to him compared to how I don't know what Higgins was targeted last year compared to Chase. I feel like it was around the same, but maybe Higgins is put in a better position, so he takes a couple touchdowns away. that kind of like even the smallest things can drop you from being 9th overall to 20th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be 3 touchdowns and 10 receptions. Like it could be barely anything. At the top, a lot doesn't separate those. I don't
have targets right now, but on receptions alone, Chase had 81, Higgins had 74, and Boyd had 67.
Yeah,
they were right. Tight.
Right, and Chase just does more with the ball.
Yes.
So I think Higgins could be that red zone guy, and Chase just continues to do what he does. I really don't know. I mean, it's a weird question to answer. Like, there's locks on each team. I feel
and there's question marks on each team, even.
Right. So
yeah, but I feel like my biggest question mark would be Rashad Bateman. Like, I don't know if his ADP is going to equal out to where he is over Higgins and Chase.
Yeah,
so he's my biggest question mark in the division. And the lock for ADP is definitely Lamar. Najee is too, but I could see him having just the team being different, the playbook being different.
I mean, a big question mark's Dobbins.
Yeah.
I mean, he has so much potential and upside, but a torn ACL.
It's hard to predict the unknown. It's hard to predict the unknown. Irv Smith is another one at this point. We don't know anything about Irv Smith other than he was like good on Madden last year.
I don't think he's in the division, is he?
Not at all. No, we talked about him in news, though.
Okay. Yeah. He is definitely hard to predict in this division.
This division is...
Yes, he is.
Interesting. It's going to be a crazy year in this division.
It's not the best division, which I think is weird. Usually it's like they could be argued for.
What do you
They're
think
not
is
the best division? What is it? The
AFC
West?
Oh, yeah.
Chargers, Broncos.
Yeah. The Chargers gotten crazy good this offseason. Yeah. They're like the flashiest team now.
The Raiders.
I mean, it's either them or us.
Who's the last team West, I can't think of?
The Broncos. The worst team in the West, the Chiefs also. The worst team in the West
Raiders
is like a lot better than the worst team in this division.
Oh yeah.
Which is probably on paper I would think we would say it was the Steelers, but whoever it is,
I think it's the Steelers.
The
Raiders, think that's hard to say.
The Raiders, maybe they're not that much better, but the top 3 teams, like if you cut the Raiders and the Steelers out of these two divisions, I feel like the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos kind of smack the Browns, Ravens, and Bengals. But it's just a different style of football,
That's
too.
Fair.
Honestly. It's different.
But
I think they're way more talented and top heavy, I guess I'll say.
I would be willing to
put a lot more.
I'd be willing to put a cup of coffee on if there's any. The AFC North will beat the AFC West heads up this season.
I would take that bet.
All right.
Yeah,
Tell me where you like your coffee, because I'm probably going to be buying you some.
Usually Dunkin',
Einstein
but there's
Brothers?
a spot right by my house that I got to
Ridgewood?
try.
Yeah, they're good, bud. They're good.
All right, my first one's
solid.
on you.
I wanted to go get a cup of that before I went to the outing on Saturday at Mill Creek, and they were closed. I don't even know when they're open at this point. Probably Monday to Friday.
I think they're only open till 11 or 12.
It was 8 in the morning.
Maybe it was Saturday. Maybe they're not open on Saturday.
Oh, sad. I had to go to Dunkin'.
We will be doing the South. That'll be coming out Friday. And then the AFC West, the big one, that'll be coming out next Wednesday. That's also when I think we agreed we'll announce the giveaway winner. Also, speaking of the giveaway, if you guys are listening to this or you watch on YouTube, comment below if you are subscribed, because I know we have some subscribers, but if your settings are set to private on YouTube or you don't turn that off, I can't see your name or who you are if you subscribe. So please comment on this video below, or if you're listening on the audio, go find this video, comment below, let me know that you subscribed, because that's the only way to get in the giveaway. But next Wednesday, AFC West, that Friday, the NFC East, the following Wednesday, NFC North, the following Friday. That'll be August 18th, NFC South. And then to finish the divisions off that following Wednesday, August 23rd, NFC West. And then we'll probably do some more mock drafts, maybe a couple. And then our normal season preview where we actually discuss real life.
Yeah.
Record
predictions.
Let's go. award-winning
X's and O's, baby.
Kevin's going to be here on Thursday for our recording.
Oh, he's on a guest member. Or he's going to be at
this upcoming Thursday.
Man, you should let him on your mic.
What's he going to be doing? What's he going to be doing down in Columbus?
Seeing me and golfing.
I can't believe did you make him pick up golf again, Bob? Is it your fault?
I didn't do anything. I'm ready to give it up.
He was completely done.
I'm ready to give it up.
He hit an eagle.
Yeah, he made an eagle last year when we golfed for Alan's not bachelor party, but like the day before his wedding.
The wedding.
And he banged home an eagle.
You always play for that one shot, and that got him back in completely. How about that?
He completely bought a new set. He went the full yard, man.
I think me and him had the same exact set of clubs, like those Nike, like
I
black
got them
and
now.
Gold ones.
I played so badly yesterday in my league that I'm gonna get out of here right now after I close this out and go hit a bucket of iron balls and try to straighten out why I'm sending everything 20 yards to the left. But so thanks for listening to today's episode, the AFC North Preview. For AJ and Alan, I'm Bob, and we thank you for listening to the AA Fantasy Football Podcast.